The 5 homeless who became millionaires. What if I told you that the people who understand prosperity better than anyone else are the ones who have spent years with absolutely nothing? That the homeless people you walk past every single day without seeing carry secrets about wealth that completely contradict everything you've been taught about money. And here's the most counterintuitive part that'll blow your mind. It was precisely by living in extreme poverty that 5 people discovered the exact path to creating millions. Think about that for a second. While business schools teach theories and consultants sell frameworks, these 5 people were getting a PhD in survival economics on the streets. They learned what you can't learn in any classroom: how to create value from nothing, how to read people in seconds, how to adapt or die, how to build networks when you have zero social capital. And they learned it the hardest way possible. If you're struggling financially right now, if you feel trapped in a cycle of scarcity, if money seems to slip through your fingers no matter what you do, prepare yourself. Because what you're about to hear will flip your entire perspective upside down. These 5 homeless individuals are going to show you, with brutal clarity, exactly how to escape your situation. Not with theory, but with principles forged in the fire of real survival experience. Don't miss a single moment of this journey. Every revelation, every principle, every transformation has been carefully placed to guide you from a poverty mindset to a prosperity consciousness. Listen all the way through. Your relationship with money is about to change forever. Downtown Los Angeles, underneath the 4th Street Bridge, 5 people sat around a barrel fire on a February night in 2015. To anyone passing by, and no one was passing by at 2 a.m., they looked like just another group of homeless people trying to stay warm. But something different was happening that night. Something that would change everything. Marcus Webb sat with his back against a concrete pillar, his weathered face illuminated by the firelight. At 52, he'd been on the streets for 7 years, but before that, he'd been a financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm. One bad divorce, one deeper depression, one series of terrible decisions, and he'd lost everything. But here's what nobody knew. Marcus hadn't lost his ability to see patterns. Every day on the streets, he watched the flow of money, people, opportunities. His analytical mind never stopped working. It just started analyzing a different market. Next to him sat Tommy Builder Rodriguez, 48, whose hands were constantly moving, constantly fixing something. Before homelessness, Tommy had been a civil engineer. Now he was the guy who could fix anything with nothing: turn a shopping cart into a mobile shelter, create a water filtration system from bottles and sand, engineer a heating system from candles and terracotta pots. Necessity isn't the mother of invention, Tommy would say with a grin. Desperation is. And desperation doesn't care about your budget. Across the fire sat Sarah Chen, 43, and if you looked in her eyes, you could still see the PR executive she used to be. Sarah hadn't lost her gift, she just lost everything else. She could still read a room in 30 seconds, still knew exactly what people needed to hear, still built connections faster than anyone Marcus had ever seen. On the streets, this made her the hub of an invisible network. She knew every shelter's schedule, every food bank's rules, every cop's personality, every business owner's soft spot. Information flowed through Sarah like water. Daniel Morrison, 56, sat slightly apart, watching everything with those sharp anthropologist eyes. Before the streets claimed him, he'd taught at USC, studying marginalized communities. The irony wasn't lost on him when he became his own research subject. But Daniel had discovered something profound. Homelessness gave him a perspective on human behavior that no academic study ever could. He saw the patterns in people's movements, understood the unspoken rules of street economics, identified opportunities that were invisible to everyone else because they required seeing the world from the bottom up. And then there was Rita Ghost Williams, 38, who'd been homeless since she was 14. No corporate past, no degrees, no safety net to fall from. Just pure survival instinct honed over 24 years of living on the edge. Rita could sense danger 3 blocks away. She could spot an opportunity in a random conversation. She could adapt to any situation in seconds. She had what the others had to learn. She was born into the university of the streets. That night, Marcus broke the usual silence with something unusual. "I've been tracking the trash," he said quietly. 4 heads turned toward him. "The what?" Tommy asked. "The trash, the patterns. I've been watching what businesses throw away when they throw it away, what they waste." Marcus pulled out a notebook, something he'd found in a dumpster and had been filling with observations for months. "There's a fortune being thrown away every single day, not metaphorically, literally." Sarah leaned forward. "What kind of fortune?" "Last week, I watched a restaurant throw away $200 of perfectly good food because it was one day past their internal freshness date. Not the legal date, their internal policy date. I watched a furniture store dump 6 chairs because one leg was wobbly. I watched a tech startup trash 20 monitors because they were upgrading." "So?" Daniel asked, though his eyes suggested he already saw where this was going. "So," Marcus continued, "there's an entire shadow economy that we see and they don't. We know the value of things they consider worthless. We know how to fix what they think is broken. We know who needs what they're throwing away." Rita spoke up, her voice quiet but sharp. "You're talking about building something." "I'm talking about the fact that we have skills everyone assumes we lost when we lost our addresses," Marcus said. "Tommy can fix anything. Sarah can sell anything. Daniel can analyze anything. Rita can survive anything. And I can see the patterns in all of it." "With what capital?" Tommy asked, ever practical. "We have exactly $43 between us." He knew because he'd counted that morning. "Exactly," Marcus said with a strange smile. "We start with nothing. Just like everyone we could help will start with nothing. We become the proof of concept." Sarah's eyes lit up. "You're thinking bigger than just us." "I'm thinking," Marcus said slowly, "that we've been living in the greatest business school in the world and didn't realize it. Every single day, we solve problems that would destroy most people. We create value from nothing. We build networks from scratch. We adapt or we die. These aren't just survival skills, they're billion-dollar business skills." Daniel laughed, but it wasn't mocking. "You know what's crazy? You're right. I spent 20 years studying poverty from the outside. Living it taught me more in 7 years than all my research combined." "So what's the play?" Rita asked. She didn't deal in philosophy, she dealt in action. That question started a conversation that lasted until sunrise. And by the time the sun came up, 5 homeless people had the skeleton of an idea that would eventually make them millions. But first, they had to prove it could work. Their first move was simple. Tommy took their $43 to a thrift store and bought tools. A hammer, a screwdriver set, some sandpaper, wood glue. Basic stuff. "This is insane," he muttered, but he was smiling. "I haven't built anything real in 5 years." "You've been building survival systems for 5 years," Marcus corrected. "Now you're just applying the same principles to furniture." They started small. Sarah had identified a consignment shop owner named Mrs. Peterson who was sympathetic but practical. "Bring me something sellable," she'd said, "and we'll talk percentages." Tommy found 3 chairs in a dumpster behind an office building. Nothing wrong with them except scratched finish and loose joints. He spent 2 days fixing them, refinishing them, making them beautiful. Sarah convinced Mrs. Peterson to display them prominently. They sold in 48 hours for $90. After Mrs. Peterson's cut, they had $63, plus their initial $43, $106. "We just increased our capital by 146% in a week," Marcus said, doing the math automatically. "Wall Street would kill for those returns." But here's where it got interesting. They didn't just scale up the furniture repair. Instead, each of them started applying their unique skills to different opportunities they'd been observing. Daniel had noticed that temp agencies always needed last-minute workers, but homeless people rarely could take those jobs because they didn't have phones or reliable ways to be contacted. He spent $15 on a burner phone and created a simple system. He'd get the job listings. Sarah would match them to people she knew in the homeless community who had the skills, and Rita would run messages between everyone. They took a small coordination fee from each placement. Within a month, they'd placed 47 people in temp jobs and earned $312 in coordination fees. But more importantly, they'd built a reputation. Sarah's networking skills turned that reputation into something bigger. She started talking to small business owners about their actual problems, not selling anything, just listening. And she discovered something fascinating. A lot of them needed help with things that seemed impossible to them, but were second nature to people who'd survived on the streets. This restaurant owner, Sarah reported one night, he's losing money because he can't manage his inventory properly. He overorders, food spoils, he throws it away. Marcus, you could solve this in your sleep. Without access to his systems, Marcus asked, "You've been tracking trash patterns across 6 city blocks for months with a notebook. I think you can handle one restaurant's inventory." She was right. Marcus spent a week just observing the restaurant when crowds came, what people ordered, what got wasted. Then he presented the owner with a simple system. Order this much on Monday, this much on Thursday, donate the Thursday surplus to the shelter Sarah recommended, get a tax write-off and good PR. The owner's waste dropped by 40% in the first month. He paid Marcus $200 and referred him to 3 other restaurant owners. Tommy's building skills evolved too. He realized that a lot of small businesses couldn't afford proper maintenance, but couldn't afford to ignore it either. He started offering preventive maintenance services, fixing small problems before they became big ones. His pitch was simple. I can fix a leaky pipe for $20 today, or you can call a plumber for $200 next month when your ceiling caves in. He was booked solid within weeks. But here's where their past lives collided with their current reality in the most painful way possible. They started making enough money that they could afford to move into an actual apartment. And that's when everything almost fell apart. The moment they had a lease, had an address, had 4 walls and a roof, something shifted. Marcus started wearing a button-down shirt to meetings. Sarah got a phone plan. Tommy bought new tools instead of scavenging. Daniel started researching business licenses and proper LLC formation. They were becoming legitimate, and it was killing everything that made them special. Rita noticed it first. "You're all starting to think like them again," she said one night, about 3 months into their new living situation. "Like who?" Sarah asked. "Like people who have forgotten what it's like to have nothing. Marcus, you just turned down a job because the client wanted to pay in cash instead of check. Tommy, you bought a $50 drill when you could have fixed a $20 one. We're losing the thing that made us different." "We have to be professional," Daniel argued. "We need legitimacy to scale." "No," Rita shot back. "We need to remember that our advantage isn't in being professional. It's in being real. It's in understanding both worlds, the world of people with nothing and the world of people with something. The second we forget where we came from, we become just another business. And there are a million of those already." The argument that followed was brutal. Marcus accused Rita of wanting to stay stuck. Rita accused Marcus of abandoning the mission for respectability. Sarah tried to mediate. Tommy retreated into fixing things. Daniel just observed, taking mental notes like the anthropologist he'd never stopped being. But Rita had touched something true, and they all knew it. The breaking point came when they got their first big opportunity. A social services organization wanted to hire them to create a job placement program for homeless individuals. The budget was $50,000. It would have solved all their financial concerns for months. But the organization wanted them to do it the right way. Background checks, drug testing, mandatory counseling sessions, the works. "It won't work," Rita said flatly when they presented her with the contract. $50,000, Rita, Marcus countered. We can help hundreds of people. No, you can process hundreds of people through a system that treats them like they're broken. I've been through a dozen programs like this. They don't work because they start from the assumption that homeless people need to be fixed before they can contribute. That's backwards. So what's your solution? Sarah asked, genuinely wanting to know. We start from the assumption that they're already skilled, already valuable, already capable. We just help them apply what they know in ways the market will pay for, like we did. That's not what they're paying for, Daniel pointed out. Exactly, Rita said, so we don't take the money. They didn't take the money. Instead, they did something that seemed completely insane. They went back to the streets. Not to live, they kept the apartment, but to remember. Each of them spent 1 week a month back under the bridge, reconnecting with the community, remembering what it felt like, staying sharp. And that's when they discovered their real business model. Marcus realized that his pattern recognition was most powerful when applied to the invisible economy, the flow of goods, services, and needs that happened beneath the official market. He started matching surplus with scarcity, connecting businesses with excess to people with needs, creating value from what others considered waste. Tommy discovered that his ability to fix anything with nothing was actually a specialized form of sustainable engineering. He started consulting for companies that wanted to reduce waste, showing them how to repurpose, repair, and reimagine instead of replace. Sarah's network became a formal community platform, not a social services organization, but a mutual aid network where people traded skills, resources, and opportunities. No bureaucracy, no gatekeeping, just connection. Daniel turned his observations into data. He started selling insights about consumer behavior, street economics, and human patterns to companies and researchers who realized his perspective was unique and valuable. And Rita became the sole check. Anytime they started drifting toward conventional business thinking, she pulled them back. Would this have helped us when we had nothing? Became the test for every decision. Their revenue in year one, $47,000, barely profitable. Year two, $340,000. Now they were paying themselves actual salaries. Year three, $2.1 million. They'd accidentally built something that scaled. But here's what nobody expected. The growth didn't come from getting bigger. It came from staying connected to the streets while operating in the boardrooms. They could speak both languages. They could see opportunities that required understanding both abundance and scarcity. A tech company hired Marcus to reduce operational waste. He saved them $3 million in year one by applying the same principles he'd used to track trash patterns, identify what's being wasted, understand why, redirect the flow. A major retailer hired Tommy to redesign their repair and return process. He reduced their waste stream by 60% by creating systems that repaired instead of discarded. Sarah's network grew to 10,000 members across 12 cities. People helping people, no middleman taking cuts, just pure mutual aid that happened to generate economic activity. Daniel's research firm became the go-to source for understanding underserved markets because he actually understood them from the inside. Rita became the face of the company, the one who told their story, the one who kept them honest, the one who reminded everyone that their success was meaningless if it didn't create a path for others. By year 5, they were millionaires, all 5 of them. And that's when they faced their biggest decision: what now? They could have cashed out, enjoyed their wealth, moved to nice neighborhoods, left the struggle behind. A lot of people expected them to do exactly that. Instead, they did something different. They created the Prosperity Street Academy, not a charity, not a program, but a business school specifically for people experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty. The curriculum: The 7 principles they discovered through experience. The first principle, resource vision, wasn't about positive thinking. It was about literally training your eyes to see value where others see waste. They taught people how to identify discarded resources, evaluate their potential, and reimagine their use. Marcus ran this module personally. Everyone walks past the same trash, he'd tell new students. But some people see garbage and some people see opportunity. The difference isn't in what's there, it's in how you've trained yourself to see. The second principle, radical adaptation, was about turning limitations into competitive advantages. Tommy taught this one. You know what happens when you can only use hand tools because you can't afford power tools, he'd say while demonstrating a repair. You get really good with hand tools. You develop skills that people with unlimited resources never bother to learn. Then one day, you're in a situation where power isn't available, and suddenly your limitation is a superpower. The third principle, survival networks, was Sarah's domain. She taught people that community isn't just about feeling good, it's about survival and prosperity. People think networking is about collecting business cards at conferences, she'd explain. Real networking is knowing who has what you need and who needs what you have. It's about creating webs of mutual benefit so strong that everyone rises together. The fourth principle, movement economy, was about efficiency born from necessity. Rita taught this with brutal honesty. When you're homeless, every movement costs energy you might not have to spare. You learn to minimize waste. Every action has to serve multiple purposes. That's not just survival, that's lean operations at the highest level. Fortune 500 companies pay consultants millions to teach them what you already know. The fifth principle, market intuition, was Daniel's specialty. He taught people to read the invisible patterns in human behavior. The market tells you what it wants if you know how to listen, he'd say. But most people are listening to what people say. I teach you to watch what people do. There's always a gap between the two, and that gap is where opportunity lives. The sixth principle, applied resilience, wasn't about generic motivation. It was about specific systems for getting back up. Everyone talks about resilience like it's about being tough, Marcus would explain. It's not. It's about having systems in place before you fall so you can get back up faster. It's about learning from every failure so the next attempt is smarter, not just harder. The seventh principle, collective purpose, was the integration of everything else. This they taught together. Individual success from the streets is rare, they'd tell their students. And it's usually unstable because you're fighting the whole system alone. But collective success, that changes systems. Your prosperity means nothing if the person next to you is still struggling. Not because of morality, because of mathematics. Rising together is more stable than climbing alone. The academy didn't guarantee anyone would become millionaires, but it guaranteed they'd learn to see opportunity where they'd only seen obstacles before. Within 3 years, over 500 people had gone through the program. 73% had stable housing within 6 months. 54% had started some form of income-generating activity. 31% had built actual businesses. But the numbers didn't tell the real story. The real story was in the transformations. Like James, who'd been homeless for 12 years and thought he had no skills. Turns out, 12 years of negotiating with cops, security guards, and shelter staff had made him an expert in conflict resolution. Now he consults for companies on de-escalation strategies. Or Maria, who'd been couchsurfing for 8 years while working 3 part-time jobs. She thought her problem was that she wasn't working hard enough. The academy helped her see that her real problem was efficiency. She was working hard, not smart. Now she runs a virtual assistant company that employs 15 people, all of whom used to be in similar situations. Or David, who'd lived in his car for 4 years and felt completely invisible. The academy taught him that invisibility was a skill, the ability to observe without being noticed. Now he's a user experience researcher for a tech company, watching how people interact with products when they don't know they're being watched. The transformations kept coming, and each one reinforced the same truth. Poverty doesn't destroy capability. It often enhances it. The problem isn't that people experiencing poverty lack skills. It's that society refuses to recognize their skills as valuable. By year 8, the 5 founders were worth about $8 million each. They lived modestly, nice apartments, not mansions, reliable cars, not luxury ones, comfortable lives, not lavish ones. Why don't you enjoy your wealth more? A journalist asked them during a profile piece. Rita answered, I am enjoying it. I'm just enjoying it differently than you imagine. My wealth isn't in my bank account, it's in my freedom. I can work on what matters. I can help who I want. I can say no to anything that doesn't align with my values. That's wealth. Marcus added, besides, we lived with nothing long enough to know that more stuff doesn't equal more happiness. Beyond a certain point, money only matters for what it lets you do, not what it lets you buy. And what we want to do, Sarah continued, is prove that the path from poverty to prosperity isn't about luck or charity. It's about recognizing the skills you already have and applying them in ways the market values. Tommy nodded. Everyone thinks we succeeded despite being homeless. We succeeded because we were homeless. That experience taught us things you can't learn any other way. Daniel, ever the researcher, pulled out data. We've tracked our graduates. Those who fully embrace all 7 principles have a 91% success rate at creating sustainable income within 2 years. Those who only partially adopt them have a 34% success rate. The principles work, but only if you really integrate them. The academy grew. They opened locations in 5 cities. They trained trainers who'd been through the program themselves to teach others. They created an online version for people who couldn't attend in person. They partnered with businesses willing to hire graduates and give them real opportunities. But they never franchised, never took venture capital, never let anyone tell them to scale faster or optimize the model, or any of the other business advice that would have destroyed what made them special. Our growth rate is limited by one thing, Marcus explained to frustrated investors they turned down. The number of people who truly get it. We're not trying to process maximum humans through a system. We're trying to create maximum transformation with each human. Those are different goals with different timelines. 10 years after that night under the 4th Street Bridge, the 5 of them sat together in their shared office. They'd stayed partners, stayed friends, stayed connected to the mission. You ever miss it? Rita asked, the question she asked every year on the anniversary. The streets, Tommy clarified. Yeah. Parts of it, Marcus admitted. The clarity. When you have nothing, decisions are simple. Now we have to choose between good options instead of just trying to survive. That's harder somehow. I miss the invisibility, Daniel said quietly. Being homeless, people look through you like you're not there. It's dehumanizing, but it also means you can observe everything without being noticed. Now people see me, and I realize I learned more when they didn't. I miss the community, Sarah said. The real one, not the Instagram version. When you're on the streets, people help each other because they have to. No performative charity, no savior complex. Just mutual aid because we're all we've got. Tommy shrugged. I miss building things with my hands every day. I do more managing now than making. It's necessary, but it's not the same. You know what I don't miss, Rita said. I don't miss wondering if I'd survive the night. I don't miss the cold. I don't miss being hungry. I don't miss being scared. I learned from it, I grew from it, but I don't romanticize it. They all nodded. That was the balance they tried to teach. Honor what the struggle taught you without pretending the struggle was good. Extract the lessons without glorifying the pain. The kids ask me sometimes, Sarah continued, referring to the academy students, if we think everyone experiencing homelessness can become millionaires. You know what I tell them? What? Marcus asked. I tell them that's the wrong question. The right question is, can everyone experiencing poverty develop prosperity consciousness? Can they learn to see resources instead of scarcity, to create value from nothing, to build networks that elevate everyone? Yes, that doesn't mean everyone will become millionaires, but it means everyone can become prosperous in the ways that actually matter. Hear that? Tommy said, using his favorite affirmation. The truth they discovered, the truth they tried to teach everyone, was that prosperity wasn't a destination. It was a way of being. It was how you saw the world, how you interacted with resources, how you connected with others, how you created value. You could have millions and still operate from scarcity consciousness, hoarding, fearing loss, seeing everything as zero-sum. Or you could have little and operate from prosperity consciousness, sharing, creating, seeing abundance everywhere. They'd learned this the hardest way possible, by losing everything and discovering they still had the most important thing: the ability to create value from nothing. That ability didn't come from their college degrees or their previous careers. It came from the streets, from necessity, from survival, from hitting bottom and discovering that bottom was solid ground to build from. Their final teaching, the one they saved for students who'd completed the full program, was the simplest and the deepest. Stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop waiting for the right opportunity. Stop waiting for permission. You already have everything you need, you just haven't learned to see it yet. The 7 principles aren't about acquiring new skills. They're about recognizing the skills you already developed through struggle and applying them in new contexts. Some students got it immediately, some took years, some never did. The 5 founders were okay with that. Not everyone's ready, Rita would say. Plant the seeds anyway. Some won't sprout for years. That's fine. We're not selling quick fixes here. By year 12, the Prosperity Street Academy had helped over 5,000 people transform their relationship with poverty and prosperity. The ripple effects were impossible to measure. A woman who learned resource vision taught it to her kids. Those kids grew up seeing opportunity instead of obstacles. A man who mastered survival networks created a community support system that helped hundreds. Those hundreds helped thousands. The 5 founders never trademarked the 7 principles, never gatekept the knowledge, never tried to control the message. They just kept teaching anyone genuinely ready to learn. Aren't you afraid someone will steal this and make money from it? A concerned student asked once. Sarah laughed. Steal what? The principles. We learned them from the streets. They don't belong to us. If someone takes them and helps people, beautiful. If someone perverts them, people will see through it. Truth survives. As they aged, each founder focused on what they loved most. Marcus trained other analysts in pattern recognition. Tommy built systems that codified repair and reuse methodologies. Sarah expanded the network across 20 cities. Daniel researched and documented everything, creating the academic framework that legitimized their work. Rita kept them all honest, the eternal voice asking, would this have helped us when we had nothing? They were often asked the secret of their partnership. How do 5 strong personalities work together for over a decade without killing each other? Oh, we wanted to kill each other plenty, Tommy would joke. Still do sometimes. The secret, Marcus would explain, is we stopped trying to convince each other and started trying to complement each other. Rita's street wisdom without my analytical framework is powerful but limited. My analysis without her reality check is sterile. Together, magic. Plus, Sarah would add, we actually like each other. That helps. Speak for yourself, Daniel would mutter, and they'd all laugh. The truth was deeper, though. They'd each transformed so completely from who they'd been under that bridge that they barely recognized their former selves. The homelessness hadn't destroyed them, it had reconstructed them, broken them down to the foundation and rebuilt them stronger. We thought we'd lost everything when we lost our homes, Rita reflected on their 12th anniversary. Turns out we just lost the illusion of security. What we found was actual strength. The streets taught us that security doesn't come from possessions, Marcus added. It comes from capability, from knowing you can create value anywhere, anytime, with anything. Their legacy wasn't the millions of dollars. Most of that had already been reinvested in the academy and the network. Their legacy was the thousands of people who'd learned to fish instead of waiting for fish, who'd learned to create value instead of just pursue money, who'd learned to see their struggles as education instead of just obstacles. One student, who'd gone from sleeping in a shelter to running a successful repair business that employed 20 people, once asked, "How do I thank you for changing my life?" "Change someone else's," all five of them said in unison. They'd answered that question so many times they could harmonize. That was the real secret of the Prosperity Street Academy. It wasn't a program or a business or even a philosophy. It was a transmission. Consciousness passed from person to person, life to life, community to community. You couldn't bottle it or package it or sell it. You could only be it, live it, give it away. And the beautiful paradox, the more you gave it away, the more you had. 15 years after that night under the bridge, the five formerly homeless founders sat in a circle much like they had that first night. Different setting, a comfortable office instead of cold concrete, but the same energy, the same honesty, the same commitment. "Any regrets?" Sarah asked. "None," said Marcus. "Well, maybe one," Tommy admitted. "I wish we'd figured this out faster. Think of all the years we wasted thinking we were worthless." "We weren't ready faster," Rita said quietly. "We needed every year of struggle to learn what we needed to learn. You can't rush that kind of education." They sat in comfortable silence, these five people who'd walked through hell to find their purpose, who'd proven that prosperity isn't about where you start, it's about what you do with where you are. Their story spread across the world, changing everyone it touched. Not because it was unique, there are many paths from poverty to prosperity, but because it was true, because it showed that the skills you develop in struggle aren't weaknesses to overcome, they're strengths to embrace. The five millionaires who'd started with nothing had proved something most people think is impossible, that you can create everything from nothing if you know how to see. That poverty doesn't define your potential, it often expands it. That the real prosperity is becoming someone who creates value wherever you stand. Follow for more stories that can change your life. Leave your comment about how this journey transformed your perspective, and you'd like to help other people who are also seeking to escape their financial struggles.